Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving deep into a Linux distribution that has been making some serious waves in the community. In the vast and often crowded world of Arch-based distros, it takes something special to stand out. You have the purest choice, vanilla Arch itself. You have user-friendly gateways like Endeavor OS. And then you have a project like CachyOS, which has been climbing the distro watch ranks and generating a ton of buzz. The core question is why? Is this just another respin with a custom theme and a handful of pre-installed packages? Or is there something genuinely different happening here? That's what we're here to find out. CachyOS first appeared on the scene in 2021, making it a relative newcomer. But in that short time, it has carved out a very specific niche for itself, built entirely around a single promise: performance. The developers describe it as a blazingly fast operating system, and that's not just marketing fluff. As we'll see, the entire distribution is engineered from the ground up to be as fast and responsive as possible on modern hardware. It takes the core principles of Arch: a lightweight base, a rolling release model, and access to the enormous Arch user repository, and then adds its own layer of aggressive optimization on top. This includes providing its own custom-tuned kernels, recompiling key software packages with advanced compiler flags, and building a suite of tools to make managing this high-performance system easier. In this video, we're going on a comprehensive deep dive. We'll start by walking through the installation to see how it compares to other Arch installers. We'll look at the out-of-the-box experience and resource usage. Then we'll get into the really interesting part, the technical secret sauce that makes CachyOS tick. After that, we'll explore the custom applications that CachyOS provides. And most importantly, we'll have an honest conversation about the trade-offs involved. Because in engineering, performance always comes at a cost. Is that cost worth it? And is CachyOS the right distro for you? Let's get started and find out. So, what's it like to actually get CachyOS up and running? If you've ever been put off by the infamous command line installation of vanilla Arch, you'll be pleased to know that CachyOS offers a much more welcoming experience. The primary installation method uses a customized version of the Calamares installer, which provides a clean, straightforward graphical interface that will feel instantly familiar to anyone who has installed Ubuntu, Fedora, or most other modern distros. The process is logical and efficient. You make the standard choices for your language, time zone, and keyboard layout. When you get to disk partitioning, CachyOS makes an interesting and, in my opinion, very smart choice. It defaults to the BTRFS file system. For a modern desktop operating system, this is a fantastic default. BTRFS offers powerful features like copy on write, checksums to protect against data corruption, and most importantly, snapshots. CachyOS is configured to automatically create snapshots, which means if an update ever causes a problem, you can easily roll your system back to a working state. This is a huge safety net for a rolling release distro. Of course, if you have other preferences, you can still choose ext4 or another file system. But the BTRFS default is a strong indicator of the distro's forward-thinking approach. But the real star of the show during the installation is the desktop environment selection. Instead of forcing you to download a different ISO for each desktop flavor, the single online installer gives you a massive list of 18 different desktop environments and window managers to choose from. Now, all the big names are here: beautifully themed KDE Plasma, a clean GNOME, and a lightweight XFCE. But it also caters to the tiling window manager crowd with options like i3, Sway, Hyperland, and Qtile. This is an incredible amount of choice, and it means you can get a system that's tailored to your exact preferences right from the start. For this review, I went with a fairly standard KDE Plasma setup to see what the default flagship experience is like. The rest of the installation is just as smooth, asking for your user details before presenting a final summary. Once you click install, the process is remarkably quick. On first boot, the KDE Plasma desktop is tastefully themed with CachyOS branding, but it's not overly customized. It feels clean, professional, and ready to go. In terms of resource usage, it's very impressive for a Plasma desktop idling at just over a gigabyte of RAM. This initial responsiveness and efficiency make a great first impression and set the stage for the deep dive into what makes this distro so fast. Alright, let's get to the heart of it. What is the secret sauce that CachyOS uses to achieve its blazingly fast reputation? It's not one single thing, but rather a multi-layered approach of deliberate, aggressive, and highly technical optimizations. This is where CachyOS truly differentiates itself from nearly every other distro out there. The foundation of this performance-first strategy is the kernel. CachyOS doesn't just ship the standard Linux kernel you'd find in Arch. It develops and maintains its own custom-tuned version, Linux CachyOS. This kernel is packed with patches and configurations aimed at improving desktop responsiveness and reducing latency. One of the most significant modifications is the default CPU scheduler. CachyOS uses the BOR scheduler, which stands for Burst Oriented Response Enhancer. Scheduler is a core component of the kernel that decides which processes get to use the CPU and when. Most default schedulers, like the EEVDF scheduler in the mainline kernel, are designed for good general purpose throughput. BOR, on the other hand, is specifically tuned for desktop interactivity. It gives priority to the applications you are actively using, which results in a noticeably snappier and more fluid user experience, especially when your system is under heavy load from background tasks like compiling code or rendering a video. But the optimization doesn't stop at the kernel scheduler. CachyOS takes a radical approach to its software repositories. Most Linux distributions compile their software for a very generic CPU architecture to ensure it runs on the widest possible range of hardware. CachyOS throws that idea out the window. Instead, it compiles multiple versions of key packages, each one tailored for a specific modern CPU instruction set. During installation and when you update packages, the system checks your processor and automatically downloads the binary that is most optimized for your specific hardware. This is a level of hardware-specific optimization that is typically only seen in source-based distros like Gentoo, but CachyOS delivers it in a convenient binary package format. Furthermore, they use advanced compiler techniques across the board. Packages are compiled with link time optimization, or LTO, which allows the compiler to see the entire program at once and make more intelligent optimization decisions. They also employ profile-guided optimization, or PGO, and even auto FDO, where they actually run the software, collect performance data, and then use that data to recompile the program for maximum efficiency. For gamers, this philosophy extends to their custom versions of Wine and Proton, which are not only optimized with these advanced compiler flags, but also include patches to improve compatibility with tricky anti-cheat systems and custom game launchers. The result of all this is a system where every layer, from the kernel to the applications, has been tuned to extract the maximum performance from your specific hardware. While the kernel and compiler optimizations are the engine of CachyOS, a high-performance engine isn't much use without a good chassis and a user-friendly dashboard. This is where the CachyOS custom tool suite comes in, providing a layer of polish and convenience that elevates the experience beyond just a collection of fast packages. When you first log in, you're greeted by the CachyOS Hello app. This isn't just a simple welcome screen with links to documentation, it's a genuinely useful utility. From here, you can apply common system tweaks, run post-installation fixes, and access a curated list of recommended software. It acts as a centralized starting point that helps new users get their system configured without having to dig through wiki pages. For software installation, CachyOS provides a few options. You have the full power of Pacman on the command line, of course. There's also Octopi, a powerful graphical frontend for Pacman. But for quick and easy installs, there's the CachyOS package installer. This tool presents a simple, clean interface with a list of the most popular and essential applications. With a single click, you can install your favorite web browser, office suite, or communication tool. It streamlines the initial setup process beautifully. However, the most impressive custom tool, in my opinion, is the CachyOS kernel manager. This graphical application is a game changer for anyone who likes to experiment with different kernels. Arch-based systems make it easy to install kernels, but managing them can still be a chore. The kernel manager automates all of it. From this one interface, you can browse and install any of the numerous kernel variants that CachyOS offers, from the default and Bohr scheduled versions to the long-term support, hardened or even real-time kernels. It handles the installation, the bootloader configuration, and the removal of old kernels. It's an incredibly powerful tool that makes advanced kernel management accessible to everyone. CachyOS also includes some clever utilities that work behind the scenes. The CachyOS or CachyOS hardware detection tool automatically identifies your hardware and helps install the necessary drivers, which is a huge help for users with NVIDIA graphics cards or obscure Wi-Fi chips. And the CachyOS rate mirrors utility periodically tests the speed of the available package mirrors and automatically configures your system to use the fastest ones, ensuring your updates are as quick as possible. These tools demonstrate a deep understanding of the user experience. They don't just throw fast packages at you, they provide the infrastructure to manage that high-performance system effectively. This is all backed by a surprisingly active and helpful community. The project's Discord server and forums are filled with passionate users and developers who are quick to offer support and advice. So, which is an invaluable resource for a distro that pushes the boundaries like CachyOS does. Alright, so CachyOS is fast, polished, and comes with a fantastic suite of custom tools. It sounds like the perfect Arch-based distro, right? Well, this is where we need to have a serious conversation about trade-offs. In the world of engineering, and especially in software, you rarely get something for nothing. The aggressive pursuit of performance that defines CachyOS comes with a set of risks and complexities that you absolutely must understand before making it your daily driver. The first point to consider is the project's structure. CachyOS is maintained by a very small, dedicated team. While they are clearly talented and passionate, this is not a project backed by a large corporation like Red Hat or Canonical. This introduces what's known as a buzz factor risk. If one or two key developers were to suddenly leave the project, its future could become uncertain. This isn't a criticism of the developers, but a structural reality of small, community-driven projects. For a daily driver system, the long-term resilience and continuity of the project is a valid concern. More significant, however, is the nature of the software supply chain. CachyOS provides its own binary repositories, which override many of the standard Arch packages. This is fundamental to how it achieves its performance gains, but it's also a major leap of trust. When you use vanilla Arch, you are trusting the rigorous, well-established build and signing pipeline of the official Arch Linux project. With CachyOS, you are placing that same trust in the CachyOS team's custom infrastructure. You are trusting their build process, their security practices, and their management of cryptographic keys. While there's no evidence to suggest this trust is misplaced, it is an additional link in the supply chain. And every link is a potential point of failure. There have been several documented cases in the community forums of users being blocked from updating their system due to signature or keyring related issues. These weren't malicious attacks, but they highlight the fragility that can come with a custom repository. An update path that can break even temporarily is a serious issue for a system you rely on. This is compounded by the fact that CachyOS is a rolling release distro. Arch itself already requires a certain level of user attention. You need to read announcements and occasionally intervene manually during an update. CachyOS adds its own custom kernels, its own custom packages, and its own tooling on top of that rolling base. When something inevitably breaks, troubleshooting becomes significantly more complex. Is the bug coming from an upstream Arch update? Is it a regression in a CachyOS specific patch? Is it an issue with the custom kernel, or an obscure interaction with one of the advanced compiler optimizations? This complexity can turn a minor annoyance into a major headache. The secure boot situation is another example of this trade-off. So while support is there, it's a fully manual process using tools like SBCL. You are responsible for creating, managing, and enrolling your own keys, and for signing the kernel every time it's updated. This is powerful and flexible, but it's a world away from the seamless, out-of-the-box, secure boot experience on a distro like Fedora. It's another piece of maintenance that falls squarely on the user's shoulders. These are not reasons to dismiss CachyOS, but they are the price of admission for the performance it offers. After that deep dive, we arrive at the final and most important question. What is the verdict on CachyOS? And more importantly, is this the Arch-based distribution that you should be using? As is so often the case in the wonderfully diverse world of Linux, the answer isn't a simple yes or no. It's a very strong, it depends on who you are. So CachyOS is without a doubt a masterful piece of technical engineering. It delivers on its core promise of a high performance, highly responsive operating system. The developers have poured an immense amount of effort into optimizing every layer of the stack, from the kernel to the compiler flags, and the results are tangible. The system feels incredibly fluid. The custom tools are thoughtful and genuinely useful, making the management of this complex system surprisingly straightforward. The installation is a world away from the difficulty of vanilla Arch, and the sheer choice of desktops is fantastic. It successfully proves that an Arch derivative can be more than just a theme. It can be a significant enhancement of the base system. However, all of this performance comes with a clear and significant set of trade-offs. The reliance on a small team, the complexity of a custom software supply chain, and the inherent risks of layering so many optimizations on top of an already fast-moving rolling release are not just theoretical concerns. They represent a real increase in maintenance burden and potential points of failure compared to a more conservative distribution. So where does CachyOS fit in the landscape? If you compare it to vanilla Arch, CachyOS is for the user who loves the Arch philosophy, but wants the painstaking work of system optimization done for them. It's for the person who would be spending their weekends compiling custom kernels anyway, but would rather have a team of experts do it for them. Compared to Endeavor OS, which provides an easy on-ramp to a near vanilla Arch experience, CachyOS is far more opinionated. Endeavor OS gives you a blank canvas, CachyOS gives you a finely tuned racing engine. It's less of a blank slate and more of a complete feature-rich platform right out of the box. Ultimately, the decision comes down to your priorities. If you are a competitive gamer, a performance enthusiast, or a developer who needs your machine to be as responsive as humanly possible, then CachyOS is one of the most compelling options on the market today. On the other hand, if your primary need is for a workhorse system that is predictable, stable, and requires minimal intervention, a set it and forget it machine, then CachyOS is probably not the right choice. The potential for troubleshooting a complex, multi-layered system is a real consideration. For those users, a more mainstream distro like Fedora, or even a more conservative Arch-based option like Endeavor OS would be a more prudent choice. My final recommendation is this. If anything we've talked about today has sounded exciting to you, you owe it to yourself to try CachyOS. The project is too interesting to ignore. Spin it up in a virtual machine, or if you have a spare machine, do a bare metal install. Experience the responsiveness for yourself. I'll have links to the official website, the wiki, and the community Discord in the description below. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Have you tried CachyOS? What has your experience been? I'd love to hear about it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.